Welcome to another episode of Be Growth Driven. It's your place for exclusive insights from leading entrepreneurs designed to inspire, innovate, and drive your personal and professional growth. And I have a very special friend of mine, Jason Friedman. He's the CEO of CXFormula joining us today. He's a former theater enthusiast turned serial entrepreneur and coach. He's dedicated to helping entrepreneurs, small business owners to grow and scale. So people just like you. And he founded and exited 5 successful companies. Currently, he's the CEO of CXFormula, sharing the kinetic customer formula. So I'm looking forward to hearing this because it's going to be really impactful for a lot of us out there. And so without further ado, Jason, welcome to Be Growth Driven. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Joel. Excited to be here.
Yes. So, and you and I met each other just simply through a whole nother community,
Yeah.
um, actually with the fam in the mattress space, and it was a community full of business owners, but I mean, I kind of shared a little bit about who you are. Do you want to kind of expand on that at all or?
Yeah, I mean, I am, as you said, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been around the block a few times. I've had more wins than losses, so I'm on the plus side of life here from that perspective. And my mission is connecting with entrepreneurs and helping them grow and scale their businesses, and hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls and mistakes that I made along the way, and leverage some of the experiences and tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. And so, as you said, we met in the FAM universe, where I was brought in as a coach and a guest speaker to one of the events, and then it expanded from there. And then we launched a program together and coaching other entrepreneurs, and it's just been an incredibly fun ride.
No, and exactly. And I've loved getting to know you it was like over the last 8 months now,
Yeah,
approximately. Um, and that's why we definitely wanted to bring you on because you've definitely been in places a lot of entrepreneurs have not been, where they never expected to find themselves in.
mm,
And those things create unique challenges. And I think that, for a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe just starting out, or maybe they've been going at it for a while, that those lessons that we can learn from somebody else,
yeah.
they really help us to navigate those with confidence versus anxiety.
Yeah,
Y-
well, I love that. I'd love if we can. Not that I want to drive the bus here, but
No,
I'd love to
100%.
start out with that confidence thing because I think, like, as I think about the challenges that I have faced as an entrepreneur, and that I know my students, I coach hundreds of entrepreneurs in various industries, and I know that one of the most common, consistent challenges is confidence, right?
Yeah,
And especially for people that are just starting out, right?
right.
We kind of expect that this magical moment's going to show up and our confidence is there and we're ready. And so, one of the biggest mistakes I see us as entrepreneurs make is that we wait for confidence to show up in order for us to move forward.
Yeah,
And the opposite is what is actually true, right? Confidence comes as a result of taking action, of having results from things, right? And so it takes a few other things to be in place before that. It takes courage to actually start and keep moving forward. It takes commitment to actually doing the work. And then it takes capability, like learning some of the skills and the tools and the things you need. And when you start with those three pieces of the puzzle, all of a sudden, and you start moving forward and taking steps, that's where that confidence comes from. And the more you get to do it, the more you realize how important that is to be in motion, to take those steps, to take the action towards getting someplace.
oh, absolutely. I love that. I love the courage part because that's entirely what it takes. Because a lot of times people look at business owners and they're like, oh, well, they were just born that way.
Yeah.
They were that like, oh, it must be easy for you. You're a business owner. It's like,
Well,
you know,
you know what's so funny? It's like if you watch chill, like I love like just looking at the parallels between things, finding patterns, right?
yeah,
And if you
yeah,
think of like, like the beginner's mind, or go back to like when you're a child, you are fearless. You have nothing, like confidence abounds, right?
yeah,
Because you don't know what the dangers are. You don't know what's going to burn you, or where you're going to get stuck, or we're going to fall down and get hurt. So we just do, we go, right?
yeah,
And as an entrepreneur, as we get a little bit older and we start to like dip our toe in, we don't have that openness. So we are worried. We've been bit before. We've gotten hurt. And so we don't have that same level of courage, right? That we did back in the day. So it's important for all of us to like we've got to muster up the courage.
right.
And one of the best ways to do that, in my opinion, my experience, is to really have a clear why, is to
Yeah.
really understand what your mission's about. Like when you really find your why, you find your way. The courage shows up because then you can commit to that why. Like when you have a big enough why, you have a big enough reason for why something's so important to you, all the other pieces start to kind of fall into place, right? And so all these things are related. And then like as a child, like when as that young kid, it's like, wow, like I'm gonna do this. I'm committed to like getting up and walking on my 2 feet. I know I'm gonna fall down and whatever, but I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep doing it because I want that. It's part of my mission right now.
Oh, I
And so
love
I
that.
think like as entrepreneurs, as we start to do that, uh, all sorts of opportunities unfold for us.
I like that part, and it brought to memory. We were at I was in Dallas yesterday, and we were going through this the NFM in Dallas, Texas, and I'm watching this little kid, and just it's this little toddler, and the curiosity, you could tell the curiosity
Mm,
was there,
yeah.
and the persistence of what he was going to get. And I think as entrepreneurs, we sometimes like you're talking about the why, and I've always thought about the why because we always try to even get other people to buy into our why.
Hmm.
And that's a big mistake, I think, for a lot of us. You don't need anybody else to buy into your ultimate why. It just needs to be a big enough why for you. I mean,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts there? I that's
Well, so I can see that point of view. I have an alternative point of view on that also. Like, so, look, there's different levels of why, right? We have our personal why. We have maybe our relationship whys with different relationships we might have a business why. Hopefully they're all in alignment, right? When they're all
right,
in alignment, things are better, right?
right, yeah,
But so like if your business why is big, it's bold, it's exciting, and you share that why and your employees and your team members join that and even your customers, what you create then is a movement,
yep,
right? And so like that's a powerful thing. So like we learned we learned that we met in the fam, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
in Mark Kinley's our friend Mark Kinsley's group, right? And so Mark's big why, he shares it with people and other people join that, and that's why I think one of the reasons is that community is expanding and growing because like more and more people want to join that mission and they're in that
yep,
movement and it starts to help, right? And so I think like getting clarity on mission is really important. And when you can align mission within your team and within your
yeah,
customers, you start to have the right fit. And when that happens, like 1 + 1 is 11. The synergies abound, right?
yep,
And so you get multiplier effects on all your efforts. And like a lot of entrepreneurs, like we've probably all been there. Like we're like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid I'm going to lose this great employee, or oh my gosh, I'm afraid I'm going to lose this customer. When
hmm
you have that kind of alignment in purpose and mission and vision and all that, you don't waste as much of your time worrying about those things because those things kind of are self-correcting. They support one another because you don't want to leave where there's so much alignment. It just feels too good to be part of that and to be connected in that way.
right.
So that's kind of how I think about it.
I like that from the professional standpoint and the mission thing. When I started, we're 19 years in business for our company, First Direct, right
Amazing.
now. We just celebrated that anniversary on the 11th, and it's like I remember very early on, like I didn't give much attention to mission and vision and core values.
Yeah.
And it wasn't up until a couple of years ago, as I was going through a lot of development and those types of things. I'm like, I thought they were always like fluffy and
Yeah.
didn't matter. Like that's a bunch of malarkey, It's like,
Totally.
but I started to realize I'm like, this mission is what I can get my customers to believe in,
Yeah.
and then the vision is what I can get my employees to believe in.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you're saying, and I experience the same thing. So for me, I always thought it was like what big companies do, and they're these
Yeah,
meaningless like phrases that are out there.
yeah,
And I had a mentor of mine come and kick my butt and be like, dude, like it matters. Like it
yeah,
matters. First of all, you're not clear, so how could anybody else be
yeah,
clear? And so what I found is like mission is the thing that gets us like it knows it's how we know that we're in the right culture, we're in the right place, like it feels good, we're working towards the same kind of things. Our
right,
core values are the other piece of that with culture. It's like how do we show up, who are we as people, how do we represent, how do we support, and then vision to me, like the thing that I see with most entrepreneurs is we don't set a big enough vision. We don't
Mhm.
believe enough in what's possible that we're not ready to create that scary, big, hairy, audacious vision
Right.
that's so big because we're afraid of failing or that we won't get there.
Right.
And when I find entrepreneurs, like one of the things I love doing with entrepreneurs is getting them to think bigger
Oh,
because
yeah.
all of a sudden, like lots of things become possible. And when you're trying to solve problems for like an incremental improvement, right? It's like you're like thinking, oh, how can I make this a little better? How can I change this a little bit and get a better result? When you have such a big vision, you have to think differently. You have to
Yeah.
look at different ways of achieving things. So it inspires creativity. It inspires, you know, uh, I guess really like filtering things, like looking and deciding like what's going to help me get there. It gives you a better roadmap for your future of your business. So I've loved these things so much and these tools, and they're so basic. They're fundamentals,
Right.
you know. And one of my really good friends, he's a karate world champion in karate, and he talks a lot to entrepreneurial groups as well. And he's always like, look, he's like, when I was practicing to become a world champion, he's like, I wasn't practicing crazy advanced moves and crazy other things. He's like, I focused on the fundamentals: posture, stance, balance, punches, kicks. Like when I mastered the fundamentals, that's where all the awards came from. That's where all the wins happened. And I think these are some of the core fundamentals in any business to really get clear on those because it is the building block that everything else sits upon.
Yeah.
When you get that right, you're in good shape.
You can't get to, you go through like different break points in business and you can't get to those higher break points if you don't build the foundational
You,
pieces first.
yeah, because it crumbles
You know,
every time, every time.
I always chuckle internally when, because like when I've talked to, from a marketing standpoint of consulting on strategies for businesses, and it's like, you have a business, they just started out, they don't have a product, and they go right for people, and they never built the process, the foundation of process, SOPs and those types of things. It's like, man, you're not going to scale to what you dream to be if you don't start to put these specifics about where the foundational pieces, because that's like you said, the building blocks, right?
Yeah, and you know that the same idea gets so expanded, right? So like say you're hiring people, like you were just talking about bringing on, new team members or
Yep.
whatever. If you don't have a big enough vision of where the business is going and you don't have clear mission, vision, values, you're not going to be hiring the right people. You're going to be hiring tactically for where your business is today,
Yep.
not for where you're going. And so you're always going to be behind, right? And so all these
Yes.
things tie together because if you're a growing business as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a leader, you need to be looking a little further ahead down the pike so that we're
Right.
building for the business that we're heading towards, not just historically where we've been. And I see that mistake made constantly too. And so
Yep.
all these pieces play into that.
Right. And I think it's critical there too, because I've noticed a dynamic shift in the quality of people that we attract and hire, because we've gotten clear on our mission and our vision and our core values. Like that's like we preach it from the application standpoint, that like the start of, they look at the job posting, like we preach it there, like we beat it in all the way. Because I
I
want to
love
get
that.
people passionate about it,
Well,
you know?
that's you want to attract people that are going to be in alignment, right? They're your
Yeah.
people then. And it's so important. I love that you're doing that, man. That's amazing. And honestly, great people that have an alignment with your mission are going to attract other great people,
Yep.
customers and employees, right? And
Oh
partners
yeah.
and vendors and the whole mix, right? So, yeah, that's beautiful.
I
That's
love that.
beautiful.
Man, what would okay, over the years,
Yeah.
like we opened up with, you mentioned, we mentioned that you've gone through a lot of things that would probably scare a lot of business owners. What would you say would, if you could look back, was one of the biggest challenges? And now, of course, hindsight being what it is, you're like, man, I should have seen the signs.
Oh my gosh. How many hours do we have? Um, You know, uh, one of my favorite stories to share about this is like literally, um, kind of we had blind faith in one of our vendors, and so it was a big vendor. So we were doing a rollout for a national brand that you
Right.
all know, in the financial services industry was just bought out another financial services bank, we'll call it, in the Northeast. And so they were rebranding all their locations that we had already been working with as the new location. And so one of them happened to be in Times Square, New York City. right? And so it's like all the billboards and the flashing lights and everything. And part of the storefront of this building, the big signage and everything, was an LED jumbotron that we were responsible for both the content on it, but also the LED screen. And
Oh my,
that was the storefront. Like there's no other
right.
glass or walls. It was that. And so we had a vendor that was working with us. We'd worked with them for years. But essentially, they were telling us, oh, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's coming along. They sent us photos of stuff in their shop, but they weren't photos of our stuff. We didn't know that.
Oh
And so
my.
something happened. They had some funding issues, and it was a comedy of errors or whatever, but they were lying to us, and we trusted.
Yeah.
And we felt like something was up, and we asked questions, and we should have gotten on an airplane and flown out and checked it out, but we didn't. We just blindly trusted. Anyway, fade out, fade in. We're like 2 weeks out of the opening, and we finally find out
Mm.
that it's not going to happen. They're not going to have the stuff, and like the store's not going to open. Like they spent millions of dollars on PR and
Oh
like
man.
big wigs flying to town and the whole 9 yards, right? And so I had to tell the client like that because we had been telling the client the same story, like, yeah, everything's good, everything's wonderful, whatever. And this was a client, Joel, like, you know how you worry about client concentration sometimes where you don't want more than like X% of your revenue to be any one client.
Yeah.
Well, this client had grown so quickly with us that they were like 60% of our revenue at this
Oh
moment
my.
when this all
Yeah.
happened, right? And it wasn't because we didn't have a lot of clients. It's just they grew so much faster. And so we were about to tank this whole thing. And I mean, man, it was tens of millions of dollars of revenue from one client. Like
Wow.
it couldn't have been a worse
That's
client to have this blunder with.
that would
And
be gut
so
churning.
I mean, I didn't sleep. Like the moment I
Right.
found out to like I mean, I wasn't sleeping. I was like, you know, cold sweats, like night terrors, like,
Oh my.
whatever, the whole 9 yards,
Yeah.
shaking, like, starting to think of like, could I drink more? Like, what could I do to dull the pain? Like anything that you could do, right? To
There's
kind of
got to be
make
a
this
magical
not be
button here
true.
somewhere.
Yes,
Right.
something. So like, look, what I do know is that like, I transparency to me is important. Transparency to me, like
Yeah.
clients, open, honest communication, and working together as a partner. Like I don't think of like a client as like we're the vendor, you're the customer. I think of it as a partnership always. And
Right.
so I got on an airplane, I flew to their headquarters, I met with my contact there, and I said to them, listen, we have a problem. Our fault. Our fault. Our vendor had been lying to us. We didn't know. We just found this out, and we're not going to deliver on time for the schedule. We're not going to be able to. There's no possible way.
Mm.
It's 100% our fault, 100% responsibility. I said, that being said, I have 5 or 6 short-term solutions that will get us through opening, and then a long-term solution idea for you that I'd love to present, and we can throw all of them away and come up with a different one. We can put pieces of 1 and 4 together and make a new solution, whatever. But we found this out 2 days ago. We've been putting all of our resources together to figure this out, and so on and so forth. Anyway, before I even got past that, her name was Michelle. She looked at me and she said, Jason, she's like, this is exactly why we work with you. She's like, you don't bring me problems, you bring me solutions. And I love you for that. Let's figure this out. And Joel, like all of a sudden, all the pressure went down, all like the rainbows came out, and she loved what we came up with, and we solved it. Now, it cost us a bunch of money that we weren't expecting to spend. It cost that vendor their relationship with us, which
Yeah.
they lied, right? Had they not lied, we wouldn't have, but the lesson, like if something feels like it's wrong, there probably is something wrong. And we just kind of blindly closed
Yeah.
our mind to that. And that's something that's happened other times in my life. And I finally have figured that out. Um, and so like that's one lesson perhaps that I learned from that. The second lesson is the one that I just shared. It's like you're in partnership with your employees and with your customers, and open, honest communication. It built a tighter, better relationship, right?
Yeah.
They loved us even more, even though it was a disaster, and they applauded our creativity in finding a solution, and they brought us into even more opportunities after that.
Right.
Our business grew. It
Because
didn't go the other way.
you can move mountains with that type of stuff, right?
Yeah, and
you know?
listen, like a less scrupulous person would say, like, "Ooh, maybe I should stage like a little blunder so I can look like the hero."
Right,
It doesn't work that way, right? It has to be authentic. Like when there's a problem and you show up, but I think that's true in every aspect of our life. It's how do you show up when something doesn't go the right way, right? That's
right,
very telling about who your character is, how your company is built, the values. So that goes back to the mission, the vision, the core values also,
right.
right? Who
Yeah.
are we? How do we want to be known?
I love that. I love that. It reminds me there was like a study done in business about how people because this vendor of yours that you're talking about like that this is it was I think it was Journal of Market Research or Journal of Advertising, and the statement was that people behave, and I've said this a few times on BGD, but it's like people behave honestly enough to profit, but dishonestly enough to delude themselves of their own integrity. And so to me that doesn't make sense. Like I want
That's
to go to sleep
crazy.
at
I mean,
night.
that's a really accurate. I think that's really accurate. I've not heard that quote before, but I think it's true.
Yeah. I mean, when I started my company, my experience was I was working for somebody and they didn't do things right. My summation of that was I learned a lot of what to do and a lot of what not to do.
Yeah.
And when I started my company, I just assured my wife, I says, "Hey, I guarantee you I will always be able to come home and look the kids in the eye and say dad did his best and dad did it right."
Yeah.
You
I
know,
love
and
that.
and I 'cause I always that's what I wanna train my children with. So it's like, what we're talking about here just in business, like, that's gonna help you with opening doors in business because you're being honest. It's like, this just connects with you being a good human
Well, I
and
think that's part of it, right? Like as you
right.
get like as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we get to choose what our business looks like and how we
Yeah,
show up, right? You get to choose that. It's your game. You get to make up the rules,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so, and this is also like look, when we get these kind of opportunities, like, again, I'm super grateful that you invited me to be part of this. It's like you meet people, you move each other, you enjoy that, and there's synergies. And then the more you get to know each other, the more that expands. And then there's
right,
introductions to other people. And so there's so much benefit
right,
of like being authentic and sharing those things because it
right.
helps it helps filter, right?
Well, and I appreciate that. We've gotten to know each other, and there's collaboration that you and I have talked on things. So,
Yep.
and that's I mean, that's the truth of it, and people love that authenticity.
Yeah.
I mean, they know what they can deal with. There's the statement I tell my team a lot. It's like I tell me quick whatever's going on because I can deal with what I know, but I can't deal with what I don't know.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
surprises don't help you grow business if that's your goal or your personal life or your financial life or any of those things. Like
100%.
and it made me think of something else about whenever we expect something, we got to create mechanisms to inspect it.
Mm,
And, if you expect
super
something
smart.
out of it, you gotta be able to inspect it. And,
Yeah.
whether that's sales numbers, you've got people on the phone calling, like you can't just say, "Well, I know they'll make calls."
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I believe that, things that get measured get done, right? So you gotta have a way to check in on those things.
So in all these different challenges too, you've developed massive teams. How in that process, how do you keep your team aligned with that mission, that ultimate mission?
Man, we talk about it all the time, right? And so like every meeting that we have, so I don't believe in death by meeting, right? Like
Right.
I do believe that we need to meet. I believe we need to huddle. So we have a series of different cadences of things. We do quick huddles, we do meetings, we do this, but we over communicate our mission, our vision, our values all the time. So for example, we recognize and reward employees based on exemplary behavior that showcases core values in action, mission in action, heading towards our vision in action, and we celebrate them, and we
Mm,
celebrate them with those in mind. So we reward people when they show up in concert, in alignment with each of those things. We call MVV cards. We have mission, visions, and value business cards that we have. It's like two business cards kind of folded back to back. I honestly don't have one on me right now where we're talking. I hate that I don't have it right now, but it's literally actually, hang on one second. You know
I
what I
love
do
this.
have?
I'm so gonna copy this.
I think I have. I do. Here it is. This is from one of my previous companies, right? And
Okay.
basically, we had this is a card. This was a card. It folded in half, right? So we had our
Okay.
logo and we had about the company, that we had our mission, our vision, and our core values on that. And it was in their wallet. And everyone
Okay.
had that. And we had these bigger and designed differently hanging around the office. And then, like, as one of the gifts they made for me, and everyone signed it and gave me one of those, right? And so, like, it's a core piece of how we share it. Like, it was on
Right.
our website. It was how we celebrated our employees of the month or employees of the year. It was not just based on the great work they did, but how it aligned with those pieces.
Right. I love
And
that.
so when you have a problem like we had with this one client, or actually an opportunity, really, right, with that one client, it's like failure is not an option, right? Creativity is one of our core values. We are going to figure this out. Another one of our core values, because my background's in theater, right? The show must go on is one
Right.
of our core values, right? Like, no matter what, your actor like breaks their leg or whatever, their lead, the show's still going on. The curtain's going up. There's an audience in the seats. It is going to go on. So
Yeah.
one of our core values is the show must go on in all of my businesses. And so that means that you're thinking about backup plans in advance. You're thinking about how you're going to handle things and manage things. And
Right.
so when it's the DNA of your business, right?
Yeah.
It really is the DNA of your business. And in our programs that we sell and teach now, right, the kinetic customer formula that you mentioned, like, what we do is we teach people a process. It's how to put this kind of operating system into your business that ties back to mission, vision, values, but also how does it start to show up so that your customers are feeling it at every touch point throughout. And how do we celebrate that both with your customers and with your employees? Because there's two different journeys at a minimum in your business, and most of our businesses have probably 10 to 12 journeys at a minimum. And so we really do have to look at that. And what governs how we manage and set up those journeys is this whole idea. Who are we? What is our business? What is our culture? How do we want to be known? Who do we want to be heroes to? How do we want to guide them to get to their results?
Right.
And ultimately, in every one of my businesses, and what I primarily teach people in our kinetic customer formula program is, how do you become obsessed with results for your audience, whether it be your employees, your customers, your partners, your vendors? How do you become obsessed with helping them get results? Because when you're able to help all those people win, you
Right.
can't help but to win in so many ways yourself, financially, emotionally, spiritually. Like, it's just a very gratitude based way to live. And
Right.
it's really awesome.
And I want to highlight the one thing that you mentioned in all of that is the focus here is on them winning. Not
100%,
not
always.
not 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 I'm gonna get mine. It's if you focus on their win, it's like the payback comes.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I hate, hate, and I hate to use the word hate, but I hate
Strong word.
when, well, I really do. I hate when people get so internally focused. One of my really, really good friends, she's a mentor of mine as well. Her name is Victoria Labam. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, but she helps people uh, rock it on stage. Like, she has a program called Rock the Room and whatever. And I worked with her for years, helping her with her experience and what she's done. She's like my work sister, right? My work wife. And what she always says to people, like, when you're gonna go up on stage and you're feeling nervous and you're scared, and you have that stage fright, it's because you're focusing on you.
Right.
Focus on the audience that you're about to deliver value. Stop worrying about how you're gonna look or what they're gonna deliver value. And
Yeah.
when you do that, every time when you go get up on stage, the fears go away and you do a better job. And this is true of your business. Like, I apply that teaching that Victoria shared with me to everything. When you focus on getting them value, whoever them is,
Yeah.
it'll come back to you in spades at some point. But don't do it for that reason. Do it because you
Right.
want to give the value. And that's what makes it work.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes things so much more enjoyable. My mantra that I sum all that up with is like, just my journey is like I want to create the cause for the biggest party I'll never make it to.
Yeah, right.
And that
Absolutely.
sounds I've had people tell me that that's morbid. I'm like, "No, I'm starting at the end." Like, I want to paint that room, that picture of what it's going to look like. And we do that in our businesses. We do that in our personal lives of how we serve others. And
Well, I think that's beautiful. And you may have done this exercise. Like I've been in coaching programs and masterminds and mentorship groups my entire life, right? It's been one of the joys of my life being part of them. It's also been one of the joys of my life leading them.
yeah,
And one of the exercises I had the good fortune of doing was writing my own eulogy. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this
never,
exercise. It's
never done
deep,
that, but that's a good
right?
idea.
So you write your eulogy, right? And you write it and you realize how you want to be seen at the end.
Hmm.
And this becomes kind of like a manifestation, if you will, like because now you
Mhm.
start to have a roadmap of how to do it. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's an emotional thing to do. Don't do it like before you're supposed to have a good fun time with a bunch of people, like because you'll be down and out for a little bit. But it's a really exciting exercise to do, and it's eye opening in a lot of
Right.
ways. But here's the thing, like this taught me this lesson, like this idea of legacy, right? Like what am I leaving, like, and what
Yeah.
am I leaving behind? And I had not been doing those kind of legacy building things with intention always.
Mm.
And that was the first time that I started to think about, how do I do that? How do I leave the legacy that I want to leave with intention? And so one of the coolest things that happened, and I didn't realize I was doing this, but it's related to this. That same company, that one that I had sold, they my team was amazing. Like we built a powerhouse rock star team, who like I love them all, and they are still like following me on LinkedIn and chiming in on posts and stuff nowadays and whatever. But we sold that company, and a couple years later, I also a software company also, and my software company was that company that I sold was a customer of it, but I also owned it. But our competitors were also customers, and they didn't know that I owned the software company. That was kind of a secret that we kept. And so I went to call on our biggest competitor, who was the client of my software company, and he's like, "Man, I got to show you something." And so the guy, like, we were friendly competitors, but we were competitors, right?
Yeah.
And so he takes me on a little tour, and I'm walking around, and it's like I know all the employees that were working at this guy's company, and I was like kind of tripped out. I couldn't figure out what was going on. He essentially hired away my entire company from the people that I sold it to over a couple years and replaced his entire team with my team. He's like, the best thing you ever did was sell your company. Your team is amazing. And I didn't realize like what we were doing there, but we were leaving a legacy. Like these people loved working together. They were a
Yeah.
solid team. The that company that bought them adopted our mission, vision, and values more
Wow.
so than their own, because they were like literally buying that. And the sad thing is like the people that bought us didn't appreciate that. It was lost on them.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so it was just like this beautiful thing that you realize afterwards, like, wow, like how proud I am. And to this day, it's one of the things, like, work wise, that I'm most proud of, is that we really built, like, Drew, my partner Drew, like Drew
Yeah.
and I built this amazing group of people. We attracted this amazing group of people, cultivated, and everyone took ownership of making it this amazing place. But it started out by having that alignment and
Right.
keeping that alignment. So yeah, I can't overestimate how important that is.
Well, and I know we have a hard stop here.
Yeah,
So I have one final question for you to kind of sum all this up.
bring it
And
up.
it's what does being growth driven mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Growth is an interesting word to me, right? And so is driven an interesting word to me, right? So to me, being growth driven is, I think I am growth driven, right? And so what I think of that is like, I have this absolute desire, this like, I can't explain. It's like this fire inside me that I don't control. There's a flame inside me that wants me to grow beyond, and that doesn't always mean financially. It means to develop in more ways, to learn, to expand, to give more, to contribute more, right? And what I found at each stage of my growth, and I've had a lot of stages of growth, what I constantly learn is that in order to grow my business, I got to grow me.
Mm.
And wherever my business is, I got to keep growing me. So it's the personal development, it's the relationships, it's the self-care, it's the all those things. So I am growth driven, and it takes, I mean, that exercise we did in the mastermind I ran, that
Yep.
pulse check exercise.
Yeah,
There's all these areas that I have to focus on. There's 10 core areas that are on that sheet that we use that I look at. And so to me, it is that drive. It's that mission that I'm on to constantly be evolving and becoming a better version of me each and every day.
I love that. Always changing, right?
Yeah,
Always
baby.
always
For
growing.
the better. For the better.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Always
Hopefully.
always good stuff. Well, hey, big thanks to you, Jason, for joining us and sharing your journey, your valuable insights with us. And also, frankly, the unique approach, because it's a unique approach in the market today on how you approach business growth. So especially through the CX formula, it's truly inspiring. So we thank you for sharing this with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks
By
for
all
having
means.
me. I
You
appreciate
betcha,
it.
you betcha. And so, for those of you watching, be sure to catch us next time. We're gonna go ahead and put the details also too in the comments down below, whether this is on YouTube, or, all those different places on how to get a hold of Jason. So if you're interested in the CX formula, go ahead and click the links down below. They're somewhere there. Trust me, you'll find them, and we'll get you connected with Jason. Oh, it's right there. Look at that CX formula. Look at that. She's on top of this stuff. We'll bring you back side by side there. But yeah, Jason, thanks again for jumping on today. We really appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, I love you, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great
All right.
day.
Stay good.